Hello. How's it going, Governor?
Good.
And first, thank you and all my local representatives for coming here tonight. You recently been talking about how Connecticut is the safest it's been in 46 years.
Yes.
I want to know why Connecticut has several cities in the FBI's most violent cities top 10.
I don't have a simple answer for you. I mean, I was mayor of a city where we lowered crime by 67%, and it was ranked as one of America's 10 safest cities, Stanford. But I will point out to you that in all three of the larger or heavier crime municipalities, Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford, we have seen decreases in assaults and decreases in homicides. In fact, this past year was only the fourth year in the last 40 in which homicides were less than 100. And crime right now is at its lowest level since 1968 in the state of Connecticut. So in the past year, crime was at the lowest rate it has been, the lowest number of crimes it's been since 1968. I should point out to you that Connecticut's population was roughly 650,000 fewer people in 1968 than it is today. So the rate of crime is even more reduced than it was in 1968. So they need to do more. I think, Connecticut in some ways is, I think we should have held people accountable to higher standards for a long period of time, including making people safe in whatever community they lived in. And that's what I'm trying to do. We know what strategies work: community policing, parental involvement, police officers, building relationships in communities. Those are all strategies that work, and we're trying to get those employed in as many places as we can. Clearing arrests. So you know a crime is committed, you have some level of proof about who committed it. Clearing that crime as rapidly as possible is another strategy. I think, quite frankly, that's one of the strategies that's working in Connecticut right now, why we saw such a large decline in homicides in the last year and on a trend. So I'm going to keep working with those municipalities to try to get them to lower the crime even more than they have, and we'll keep working on it.
I have a follow-up question to what you just asked me.
Sure.
So we're talking about the federal assault weapons ban from
Yes.
93 to 2004. Can you tell me how many features define assault weapon back then?
I don't have that. I did that about a year ago, and
I can tell you I registered it as it's 2 features, but
Two features.
Your assault weapons ban from last year is now 1 feature. So in theory, an AR-15 was still legal from 93 to 2004, but now it's not because you put a 1-feature test on it. So how can you sit there and say that you're not banning guns?
But we are banning guns.
Well, that's obvious, but the point is you're saying that you're supporting the Second Amendment, but you still had AR-15s available to you in those 10 years for the assault weapons ban. Now, I can't go to the store and buy one.
Yeah, I think, and I'm happy to exchange some information with you on that. The vast majority of weapons that are currently outlawed for sale in Connecticut were outlawed under the law that was allowed to expire in 2004 when the Congress wouldn't take it up. That's the reality of the matter. But if you had a gun and you owned it before the law was implemented, and as long as you complied with the registration requirement, you still have your gun legally. So nobody took away your gun. But the people in Connecticut decided that, acting through their legislature, that they didn't want those guns sold in the state. And I point out that those guns were, in fact, covered by the assault weapons ban up until 2004. It's not like this is reinstitution. This is institution of something that didn't exist. It largely existed in our nation on a national basis. Other things that we've done is to make sure that sales are subject to background checks. 90% of American people have, in polls, or maybe a low of 87% of Americans have said that they believe that all gun sales should be subject to background checks. Well, I'll go back to my experience as mayor of Stanford for 14 years. When we could trace a weapon that was used in an illegal crime that we recovered, more often than not, we found it came from a state that had no background check requirement at things like gun shows. Of course, internet sales have become very, very big. So I think what we're trying to do is take steps that make our citizens reasonably safer, as voted by the legislature. And as I said, the legislature gets the right legislation. I can veto it or sign it. I have to support the legislation for the most part. And the courts get to decide whether it's legal.
Thank you.